Hi, Year 3. Today we are looking at fractions again today, but we are looking at something different, something called a mixed fraction. Now, we know that we write one whole as the number 1 because we have one whole. Okay, but did you know that fractions can actually be bigger than one whole? Now, we know that we use fractions to talk about the small parts that a whole is cut into, but you can actually have fractions that are bigger than a whole, and those fractions are called mixed fractions. Now, let me show you a good example of what a mixed fraction looks like. So as you can see here, we've got our circle again, that's our whole, but our whole is split into quarters, and we know this because it's split into 4 small equal pieces. So our denominator is going to be 4 because it's cut into quarters. Okay, we know that there's one full whole here because it is all colored in. So you could say 4 quarters, or you could say one whole because it's all colored in. Now, if you have a look at the next circle, it's still split into quarters, but you can tell that it is actually colored in for 3 pieces. So 3 of the pieces are colored in. So we know it's going to be something 3/4. Okay, to write our representation of our fraction, we write a really big 1 for one whole. This is our whole here. That's why we've got our 1. And then next to our 1, we have 3/4 because there's 3 pieces of this circle colored in of the 4. So we have 1 whole and 3/4. Do you see here? So all of the quarters are shaded in this one to make us 1 whole. So we've got 1 whole, and then we are adding the next one, which says there are 3/4 of this whole shaded in. So then we put our 1 whole and our 3/4 together, and we get 1 whole and 3/4. And this is how we write it. Now, do you notice that in both of these mixed fractions I've written here, that the first number for the whole is really quite big compared to the fraction next to it? Okay, we do this for a reason because it's 1 whole and 3/4. Okay, if you made the 1 small, it would look like it would say 13 over 4/4, okay, which is a bit silly. So it's really important when you're representing mixed fractions, like these ones up here, that you have a really big number for your wholes that you're representing, and then the fraction is the size of the whole, but just with everything in it next to it. Okay, so this is what it shouldn't look like. It shouldn't look tiny. It should look nice and big. Okay, so let's have a look at this example here. So it says represent these pictures as a mixed fraction. Your first step in representing a mixed fraction and finding out what type of mixed fraction it's going to be is to have a look at what your wholes are cut into. Now, I know just looking at this that my wholes here are cut into equal parts of 2. We know that the fractional word for 2 is half. So it's going to be halves is what we're looking at. We have 1 full whole, 2 full wholes, 3 full wholes. So our big number at the front for our wholes is going to be a 3. Next to it, we can see that we haven't quite got a whole here. It's still in its fractional parts because we only have 1 part of the whole that's shaded. So we have 1/2. So our fraction for this one would be, I don't know if it'll let me draw. Let me see if I can show you. So our fraction for this one would be 3 wholes and 1/2. Okay, and can you see that this my whole number's a lot bigger? Okay, let's try some examples together. Okay, here are some that I've come up with before, and we're going to answer them together. Okay, remember the first step when looking at a mixed fraction is to have a look at what the whole is cut into. Okay, if this is my first question here, these ones here, I can have a look and I can see that my wholes are split into 4s. We know that the fractional word for 4 is quarters. So we're looking at quarters for this one. Let's count how many wholes we have colored in. We have 1 whole here. Everything in this one's colored in. We have 2 wholes. Now we can notice now that the next whole isn't fully colored in. So we've got 2 full wholes colored in. So we can do a big 2. And we can see that only 3 pieces of the 4 are colored in. So it's going to be 2 wholes and 3 quarters. Now, do you notice that I've done this right? Because I've got my big 2 and my 3/4 nice and small. Okay, let's have a look at this next one. I wonder what this one will equal. So our first step, have a look at what our whole is split into. I can see that it's split into 3. We know that the fractional word for 3 is thirds. So we're looking at thirds. Let's have a look and see how many holes we have completely colored in. I can see that I have 1 hole here completely colored in because all of my thirds here are colored. Okay, if I move on to the next one, I can see that they are not all colored. So I know I'm going to have 1 full hole. And I can see that I have 1 of my 3 pieces colored in of the second one. So this fraction is 1 whole and 1/3. Okay, hopefully this is starting to make a little bit more sense now. Let's have a look at this last one. We know that the first step, remember, is to have a look and see what our whole is cut up into. We can see that our whole here is cut into 2 pieces. The fractional word for 2 is halves. So we're looking at halves. Let's count and see how many of our full holes do we have. We have 1 completed hole that's everything's colored in. We have 2 holes where everything's colored in, and we know that the next one's not fully colored in. So we can't represent it as 1 hole because it's not 1 hole. So we're going to write 2 holes, and we can see that 1 of the 2 is colored in, 2 1/2. Okay, so the representation for this one is 2 holes and 1/2. Now we're going to have a quick go at writing these ones. These ones are already written. We're going to have a go at drawing them, Okay, so I need 1 whole and 1/4. Now we know, just looking at the fractional part of this mixed fraction, that we are working in quarters. Now we learned the other day that's really important to make sure that our parts are equal. So everybody gets the same amount, okay, if we were to split these. All right, now I'm looking at here 1 and 1/4. So I know that I have to color in 1 of my holes because it tells me here. So I have to color in 1 of my holes completely. Okay, it tells me for the second part of my mixed fraction that I only need 1 of my quarters colored in, 1 of the 4 pieces. So now we've drawn a picture for 1 and 1/4. Let's have a go at 3 1/2. Okay, so we've got 3 holes and 1/2. Now I've just realized here that I don't think I've drawn enough circles for this one, so I'm going to have to fix this one up. I'll draw another circle down here. Okay, let's have a look. 3 1/2. Okay, we know just by looking at our fraction here that we're dealing in halves. So we're going to split all of our holes into halves. Okay, now we need to have a look at how many we need to color in. And remember, the holes will tell us we need 3 holes colored in. 1, 2, 3. Now, if we have a look at the fractional part of our mixed fraction, it tells me that I need 1 piece of my 2 pieces colored in. And there you have it, 3 1/2.